How do we ensure that never again is more than just a rallying cry? How can we protect against the hierarchy of human life that was created and enforced by the medical profession during the Holocaust and continues to recur in various forms even today? Our next speaker calls on each and every one of us to perform our own acts of moral courage by standing up and speaking out to ensure that history does not repeat itself.
There are so many lessons that we can take from the Holocaust, so many lessons that we have to take from the Holocaust. And I think one of those speaks to the way that systemic inequities and disparities continue well into contemporary society. How that happens, who is deciding that hierarchy of value, and then who, most importantly, is accountable. Who are going to be the folks that are vigilantly watching to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And in my opinion, humbly, quite frankly, when we consider diversity, equity, access and accessibility, inclusion and justice as an overarching frame, we have to think very clearly around the ways in which the Holocaust has given us a very clear premise of understanding of the ways in which things can be justified, disparities can be justified, inequities can be justified, marginalization can be justified, the systemic execution of human beings and the snuffing out of human life can be justified. This happened. This is not something that is strictly an affect of an emotional state of reflection. It is a horrific reality. And so when we think about the ways in which there is a swelling, right? A swelling, a feverish swelling of hate, of structured and systemic marginalization that somehow is justified by some folks in society, we have to make sure that we're voicing our condemnation of this. We have to make sure that we're insisting that we turn back to history to see what has happened and ensure that we will not allow it to happen on our watch ever again. And that takes courage. The courage of many, not just the courage of those who are at risk and most vulnerable for these atrocities. The human body, absent of the human spirit, because of what so many in the medical profession allowed, was essentially reduced to economic gain and hierarchy of contributions to a society and biological determinations of what made a person more valuable or less valuable. I believe the pandemic and even the very pragmatic suggestions we've had around prevention of the spread of the virus have reminded us just how intricately and integrally connected we all are, that our survival, that our ability to thrive is a collective experiment. It's one in which we all play a role. And when we recognize that there are disparities and inequities that are making for a lack of access or diminishing resources for some of our community members, we have to address that. That can't happen in isolation. We know, as evidenced by the Holocaust, as evidenced by other racist atrocities that continue to happen throughout our contemporary history and the like, that we all have to be vigilant. We all have to say something. We all have a responsibility to be invested in the care, in the wellness, in the overall good of each and every one of our community members. And I think the pandemic, as cruel as it has been for us to live through, again, in this collective trauma, because I think that's what it is. And when we're on the other side, we'll look back and we'll be able to identify it as a collective trauma globally experienced, that we are accountable to one another. We are responsible for one another in some way. And certainly medical professionals and healthcare professionals have a unique responsibility and have done an overwhelmingly good job in doing their very best. But we too are a part of that effort. And I think this was a very harsh reminder. But in the end, I think it will draw us closer. At least that's my hope.